Thank you for joining us for Ask a Historian. I'm Matthew Wilkinson, historian with Heritage Mississauga. Please send in your questions and join us each week as we explore the stories and the history of the city of Mississauga. Like, subscribe, and follow and stay up to date on all the heritage happenings with Heritage Mississauga. Joining us this week, and I'm very pleased to welcome Gurth Pretty, master of the cheese from the newly opened Lakeview Cheese Galore. And we're going to explore I don't know, the nuances of cheese in Mississauga and the connection to Lakeview itself with Gurth, but also the opening of his brand new store in Lakeview just a few weeks ago. I believe November 20th, Gurth, I think was your opening. I could be wrong on the date there. But
no, that's correct. That's
yep.
that was the grand opening.
And for those looking to find him, right beside Stonehooker Brewery at 848 Lakeshore Road East. And Gurth, thank you for joining us, and not only to explore the story of your store and how you came to be, but also some of those ties into the GTA and cheese history, if you will. Sure. And I'm just tickled that you agreed to come on with us here.
It's my pleasure, Matthew.
So just to give us a kind of a start out, the opening of Lakeview Cheese Galore, to me, continues a fine tradition and a love affair, if you will, of cheese within our community, within the GTA. And just wondering if you can tell us a little bit about the history of cheese and cheese making in the Toronto area and Southern Ontario.
Sure. Well, you have to think of what is cheese. Basically, it's a way of preserving milk for a longer time period. And the original cheesemakers here in Ontario would have been the farm wives, you know, the women who were taking care of the animals while the men were plowing the fields or cutting down the trees and doing all sorts of other work around the farm. So the wives would be milking the cows, and you know, and they would produce so much milk that they figured, well, we need to do something with it. So they started either to make butter, and then also started making cheese for their own consumption, because by using milk into cheese, you use a lot of milk. It takes about 11 liters of cow's milk or goat's milk to make 1 kilo of cheese. So that's a lot of milk. But you have to keep in mind that cows can produce between 20 to 40 liters of milk a day. So it's a good way of, and it's per cow, exactly, 20 to 40 liters of milk per cow per day. So, you know, making cheese was an easy way to preserve that milk, especially say for the leaner months, you know, late winter, early spring, when there's not as much food around, or they're starting to run low on their stores in their root cellar. And so cheese was an easy way to get a source of protein as well as calcium, and it would store quite easily. They might even sell extra wheels of their cheese, if they had extra wheels, to the local grocer, and maybe, you know, say, okay, well, Mrs. Wilkinson, you owe us this amount on your bill. If you give us some of your cheese, you know, we'll reduce the cost of your bill in total. So doing a bit of bartering system. And eventually what happened here in Ontario in the late 1870s, early 1880s, a whole new concept occurred. It was becoming the co-ops. An American came up to Canada, to Upper Canada at the time, and saw all the dairy farmers in the areas, and he said, well, why don't you guys work together? Why don't you establish a cooperative where you pool all your milk together, hire a cheesemaker, build him a cheesemaking facility, and sell him your extra milk. And then you would get dividends at the end of the season from the cheese being made and being sold to groceries. So literally across Ontario and Quebec, in the early 1900s, there's over 2,000 dairy co-ops that existed, basically about every 10 miles or 16 kilometers. The reason why? That was about the distance that you could transport fresh milk in the days of horse and buggies without refrigeration. So many, you know, of your listeners might remember visiting cheesemakers or hearing of cheese plants a little bit everywhere. And even as you travel through southern Ontario, you'll see roads called the Cheese Facility Road or Cheese Plant Road.
Yep.
And it's just fascinating, like hearing about the names, like say Warkworth, Moscow, Harrowsmith, you know, all these different locations that had co-op cheese making facilities, which unfortunately today, I'm trying to remember how many there are left. I think there's, well, okay, I'll name them to you. There's St. Albert Cheese in St. Albert near Ottawa. There's Empire Cheese and Butter in Campbellford. Yeah, there used to be more. That's why I'm trying to think which ones still exist. Bright Cheese and Butter in Bright, close to Stratford. Yeah, I think that's about it, because
Really?
several have closed down in the last few years. I used to say there's 5 or 6.
Right.
Now there's really only 3 because Pine River closed down. Black River got bought out by Gay Lee. But there are some independent cheesemakers throughout the province. So now what is amazing, though, is that there's a resurgence in interest in making cheese commercially, whether being out of cow's milk, goat's milk, sheep's milk, and water buffalo. And so, you know, I'm actually just placing calls today for orders from almost all the way to the Quebec-Ontario border in Lancaster, calling Woodstock area, calling New Hamburg, calling cheesemaker in St. Mary's. There's cheesemakers all the way up in Thunder Bay. Well, actually, even a little bit west of Thunder Bay, all the way up to Cape of Casing, and all points in between. So it's great to see all these cheesemakers exist throughout the province.
Yeah. Sorry to interrupt, but one of the things we've seen in maybe the last decade or so is kind of proliferation of craft breweries. Is that similar to what's happening in cheese as well? This rebirth of local cheese makers?
There is definitely a resurgence, a renaissance in locally crafted cheesemakers. Most of the ones that I just mentioned to you have all been open in the last 10 years.
Okay.
Whether someone decides, I want to do a career change, I love cheese, I'm going to go and learn how to make cheese professionally. Some of these wannabe cheesemakers go and take courses at the University of Guelph, or even go and learn in Europe, to go and learn from Swiss or French or Italian cheesemakers. The other thing too I should mention is that after the Second World War, there suddenly was an influx of European cheesemakers into Canada, into Ontario, bringing their styles of cheese. So, you know, Italian cheesemakers, Portuguese cheesemakers, Dutch cheesemakers, who decided to leave Europe and come and establish themselves here.
Wow. So you have this mixing pot, I guess, of traditions of the types of cheeses. I'm not.
I have to use the proper Canadian term.
Well,
we're a mosaic of different cheese cultures, not a melting pot. That's south of the border.
Fair enough. Fair enough. But I'm not a good person to ask this question, because I mentioned in our personal conversation, you know, I have a very a basic knowledge and taste of cheese, but I understand that I've been to cheese shops where there's just so many different varieties of cheese. Does that come out of this mixing of this mosaic of cultures and traditions? And
oh, definitely, yes. You know, like say one cheesemaker I know, she took courses in France and decided to make various kinds of French cheese, French style cheese here in Ontario.
Right.
Another cheesemaker learned in Switzerland, so he makes all sorts of different kinds of Swiss style cheese. Also say regarding Portuguese cheese, Dutch style cheese, so different kinds of Goudas or Goudas. And yeah, so we really, like, even when people come into my shop here in Lakeview and they look at my selection of cheese, they say, well, I'm proud to say about 85% of my cheese are made here in Ontario. And if you don't recognize the names, don't worry, because most of these cheese aren't available in the large grocery stores. They're more available in specialty cheese shops like mine. And, you know, we give them a little tour and get them to understand more about the cheese. And even if they don't know the cheese, we'll even offer a sample, because tasting is believing. You got to taste the cheese. Wow, that's good.
How do you go about selecting the cheeses that will appear on your shelves?
Well, I know most of the cheesemakers right across the country, because I've written a book about them and about the cheese they produce. You want me to show? I can show you the book
Sure,
right now.
let's segue into that, and we'll come back to how you choose it.
Sure. So yeah, so back in 2006, myself being a former chef and I love cheese, I decided to start doing the research about who's making cheese right across the country. And that's where this project came out, the Definitive Guide to Canadian Artisanal Fine Cheese. And it is a guidebook to the cheesemaker. So you basically start in Nova Scotia. You go cheesemaker by cheesemaker all the way to Vancouver Island, showing, you know, who's making what cheese, in which province, what type of milk they're using, whether cow, goat, sheep, or water buffalo. Is it raw milk that they're using, unpasteurized milk, or pasteurized milk? And I really wanted the reader to consider going to the region and discover the cheesemaker right there at their facility and what else is there in the area. So I also list on various different activities you can do, whether it's a outdoor adventure or a cultural heritage experience, and also a foodie experience. And I've had people say, no, yeah, we've used your book to travel through Nova Scotia or through different regions of Quebec or Vancouver Island. And I was really happy to hear that. And the book was actually named the best cheese book in 2007 at the World Gourmand Cookbook Award.
Yeah,
what did I get out of that? Thank you. I got a sticker. I got a sticker to put on the book. Yay, sticker.
But no, kudos to you. And I know it's a phenomenal resource guide to really anyone who wants to explore cheese. Did you go to all these places? Like, did you visit across the country?
I visited many of them. I could not visit all of them.
Okay.
So I would contact the cheesemakers, invite them to participate by sending them a questionnaire. And, you know, I really invited everyone to participate. There was no fee to participate in the book. Yeah. My only thing would be that once the book came out, was launched, I would contact them and ask them for 2 kilos of one of their cheese that I could use at a tasting event.
Right.
And that was it. You know, from the smallest little cheesemaker that might only have 20 cows or 10 goats, yeah, all the way up to the big cheesemakers.
All right. Well, that's a phenomenal exploration of obviously something you love, but
now, I do. Yeah.
So jumping over a little bit, I know I was asking you how you select. How do you select your cheeses?
I taste them. I taste them. I know the cheesemakers. I know what they do. Sometimes they send me brand new cheese I've never even tasted, but I trust them. Yeah. Now, also, I participate quite often as a judge at Canadian and international cheese competitions. So I discover new products that way, get to know who the cheesemaker is, and then contact them, say, hey, you know, say, Ramon, I've heard you're making a new cheese. Tell me more about it. Oh, okay, that sounds interesting. All right, with my next delivery, could you please send me a sample so I can taste it? And there we go. And then again, if I don't like the cheese, I'm not going to sell it.
And I'm assuming the cheesemakers themselves are looking for outlets for their product too, right? So you have that marriage.
Yeah.
Yep. And so just, if we can maybe back up a little bit, what's the path you took to becoming the master of cheese at Lakeview Cheese Galore?
Well, okay. I used to have whiskers here. I used to have a mustache. So I used to have, you know, I'm part mouse, but I shaved it off. I've taken many courses in cheese learning, cheese appreciation, initially through the Toronto, let me just remember, the Cheese Education Guild that offered a program here in Toronto. I took a course at George Brown College. I would do a lot of reading. I would do a lot of tasting, writing down lots of notes, attending cheese festivals, cheese conferences, you know, just constantly learning and gaining more information, and also talking to my colleagues within the industry, whether they be cheesemakers, cheese professionals, cheesemongers, or cheese judges, which eventually gave me an opportunity to judge at competitions where, yes, at some competitions, there might be as many as 3,500 cheese from around the world with about 70 judges judging the cheese. On average, in about 2 days, I might sample between 150 to 180 cheese. And yes, I do spit them out. Because imagine if I sampled and ate 1 ounce of cheese times 180 ounces, holy moly, my girth would be even bigger.
Your girth,
And
okay.
it's actually very tiring work. Your taste buds get exhausted
I'm
and
sure.
you get really tired.
It,
But I love it. I enjoy it.
so like where the judging, I know your own background. You said you were a chef before you explored into this world, but obviously there's an entwinement there in terms of the cheese that you probably used into the passion you developed into what is now Lakeview Cheese Galore. But in terms of being a judge, like how where do you go? Like where have you been in this world of cheese competitions?
Well, I've judged cheese at in Montreal at the former Canadian Cheese Grand Prix that was sponsored by Dairy Farmers of Ontario. I've judged cheese at the Canadian Cheese Awards in Guelph. Also, on one occasion at the Royal Agricultural Winter Fair, they have their cheese competition. I've also judged at the American Cheese Society's annual cheese competition. That moves around from city to city in the U.S. And that competition could have, on average, about 1,800 cheese from the U.S., Canada, and Mexico. But the biggest one I've judged at on 2 occasions, if not 3 occasions, is the World Championship Cheese Contest in Madison, Wisconsin, where there'd be up to 3,500 cheese from around the world, including cheese from Tibet and Japan, and judges from around the world. And we worked in pairs where we look at the cheese, we smell the cheese, we look for any defects in the cheese. I judge more from an aesthetic perspective as compared to a technical, being a cheesemonger. And also looking at what makes this cheese unique that would make it interesting for the consumer. Why would they want to buy it? And of course, the taste of it. And being a former chef, I'm always curious with ideas on how you can cook with the cheese. So it's a lot of fun, and I learned from my fellow judges, because on one occasion I was judging Hispanic fresh cheese, so like queso duro, queso blanco, queso fresco, which I don't really know too well. Those are Latin American cheese. Then we tasted the flavored ones. Oh my gosh, I've never seen so many habaneros and Scotch bonnet chilies garnishing a cheese in my life. They look beautiful. I just had to be careful that I didn't bite into one of the chili peppers too much.
But that must be from yourself. I'm assuming, at the base of everything, you're a lover of cheese. And
yes, I am.
And something like that, where you're opening yourself up to a new experience, a new opportunity to discover new cheeses, it's got to be exciting.
It is. Like, you never know which cheese you're going to judge. Actually, in 2020 in Madison, Wisconsin, I was part of the inaugural team of judges who judged fresh cheddar curds. And being a native of Montreal, I was so happy to be judging curds. It was fun. But that was a surprise. I did not know I was going to judge that until that morning.
Oh, that's kind of a neat thing.
Yep.
So you mentioned, though, previously the one book that you had. I know you've been produced a couple others. Can you walk us through a little bit what you worked on?
Sure. So the first book was, or is, the definitive guide to Canadian artisanal and fine cheese, which I have available here at Lakeview Cheese Galore, so I can autograph and dedicate it.
Awesome.
My second book came out in late 2007. It's the definitive Canadian Wine and Cheese Cookbook, because I realized that as much as people love a cheese guidebook, a lot more people collect cookbooks.
Yeah.
So over a 6-week period, I developed 100 recipes. I borrowed a few from some fellow chefs or from the cheesemakers on cooking with Canadian cheese. And my colleague, Tony Aspler, a well-known wine writer and judge now based in Port Dalhousie, he matched each recipe with a wine variety. And this book was so popular, it actually sold out, which is great. Copies still might be available. Secondhand copies might still be available on Amazon. And then I was really, really proud when I was asked to be the Canadian contributor to the World Cheese Book. In a book of cheese from all the world, in the past, we were lucky if there'd be 2 Canadian cheese in there. When I was contacted by the editor, I asked her, well, how many cheese can I write it up about? She said, I don't know, how about 24? I said, yowza, I'm all in that. So it's great that 24 Canadian cheese got noticed in this international book. And cheese, again, made out of water buffalo. Actually, no, cow, goat, and sheep. There wasn't very much water buffalo cheese back in 2009. It was just starting here in Canada. And also giving a good representation of cheese styles made across the country. So this is a great reference book for anyone who loves to learn more about the different international cheese available around the world.
Fantastic. If somebody was interested in, you mentioned some of the courses that you've taken in the past, but if somebody was just, starting out, they love cheese, but they'd like to learn more about kind of the history of cheese or history of cheese production or that sort of, what are some of the resources? We don't need a comprehensive list. People can search for themselves, of course, but anything you'd recommend for someone starting out, other than your book? I mean, your book's a good place to start, but.
Sure. Well, in my book, there's actually a brief history of cheese making here in Canada.
Wonderful.
The two books that I really enjoy are the history of cheese making in Prince Edward County, so in the Picton area, and then this other really good book called By the Labor of Their Hands, The Story of Ontario Cheddar Cheese, written by Heather Mackenzie. Is it Heather Mackenzie? No, Heather Menzies.
Heather Menzies.
Great book all about the cheddar industry here in the province. Also, when you have the opportunity, there's two good cheddar museums in Ontario. One's in Ingersoll. There's Ingersoll Cheese Museum, and also at the Sterling Agricultural Museum in Sterling, Ontario, has a phenomenal series of displays regarding the cheese making industry here in Ontario.
Well,
so definitely well worth the visit.
Well worth a visit. So what inspired you? I think we already answered this question, but what inspired you to create Lakeview Cheese Galore?
What inspired me? Fellow people, fellow residents in Mississauga. So for the last year and a half, basically during COVID, I was doing virtual beer and cheese tastings with Stonehooker Brewing Company. And, where we'd sample 3 different cheese to theirs, 3 different beer. And at the end of every presentation, people would ask, the participants would ask, where can we buy these cheese? And I'd say, well, some of them are available at the major retailers, but the other ones, I don't know, because I buy the cheese directly from the cheesemakers, and even the cheesemakers don't know where the cheese are available. So people started saying, well, why don't you open up a cheese shop here in Mississauga? Okay. After a year and a half doing this almost every month, where we have between 100 to 200 people participating, it finally sunk in and said, maybe I should open up a cheese shop. And I decided to open up here in Lakeview because that's where I live. This is the community of Lakeview, which is just on the border between Toronto and Port Credit. It's not as well known, but there's a lot of history in Lakeview. Whether it's a small arms inspection building, as well as the first aerodrome was it in Canada?
Yes, Matthew? In Canada, yes.
In Canada, yeah. There's lots of great history in this area. And also, it's 14 minutes walk from home.
Can't beat
so
it.
I can, the only reason I can be late is, the train's going by and I have to wait. Or I got stuck at the traffic light because, I didn't press the button for the crosswalk fast enough.
Well, there's always a danger too. You stay long hours in the shop because the home is so close.
True, but then my wife is getting dinner on the go, and I want to enjoy a good hot meal with her.
Fair enough. So the forming of the store, again, you opened just about a month ago.
Yep.
What could guests expect upon visiting Lakeview Cheese Galore?
It's all about the experience. So as soon as you walk in, you'll see my 24 feet of refrigerated space, of which 85% of the cheese is made here in Ontario, whether cow, goat, sheep, and water buffalo. We have a few cheese from Quebec, from France, Switzerland, and Italy. We also have a wonderful selection of dry goods. Majority of them are made here in Ontario because I like supporting local businesses.
Right.
the other major thing is that we say hello to you. Say hello, welcome to Lakeview Cheese Galore. Come on in, come and experience the cheese. And we really want people to get close to the wall of cheese to see what the cheeses are all about, to learn about the different styles of cheese made out of different kinds of milk. And if they have any questions, we're there to answer. It's all about customer service, right, and the customer experience. You know, and if there's a cheese that people are not certain about, we'll offer you a little sample, letting you know, okay, the cheese is cold, so its flavors are still a little bit muted, sleeping, hibernating. But imagine this cheese when warmed up, or even better, cooked with.
Right.
So, yeah, and then we're also going to be offering cheese appreciation classes. Most likely be a hybrid session, but also cheese matching classes, whether with different alcohol, non-alcoholic beverages, and also I'm planning to do one with locally made chocolate from Toronto and honey from Burlington.
And these will take place in the new year and
in the new year, yep. Yeah. That's right. Soon it'll be posted online and also social media.
Yeah. And people can also offer, you know, I'm one of these ones where, you know, I like to cook with cheese, and I know my wife does, but sometimes we're not quite sure the best use of a particular cheese. You've got the ability to guide people on kind of what cheeses go with things, and
we'll give you our personal suggestions from our own experiences on, you know, oh, this cheese is amazing, and you know, we'll tell you things that you're comfortable to prepare. So, you know, if it's a grilled cheese sandwich, yeah. If it's doing a chicken cordon bleu and you're comfortable doing that, we'll give you all sorts of different ideas.
Wonderful. And people, it's not just what's on the shelf as well, because you do, you'll put together orders for people, right? In terms of...
That's right. We offer gift boxes, gift baskets. We offer gift certificates. Also, I'm just finalizing the details for my first Cheese of the Month box, which will be all Canadian champion cheese.
Oh, very cool.
And it'll come with crackers, and whether a jar of honey or locally made jams and jellies.
Oh, very neat, very neat. And this will be every month, like starting in the new year?
Every month.
Oh, very
starting in January, where you could sign up just for one box, yeah, or sign up for a box every month, every 2 months, every 3 months.
Oh, that's very
Leave it
cool.
up to you.
That's very cool. I'm thrilled that, I mean, I know you in other realms, I guess, in your other hobbies, but that you know, not only that you've opened up here in Mississauga and something that we can connect with in our community, but that you yourself are supporting local Ontario businesses as well. And I think such a win-win. So I encourage people to support you, which those connections support the other local businesses as well. And so, yep, you know, best wishes to you, and hopefully Lakeview Cheese Galore is, oh, this is a bad segue that just came in my head. It's around for a galore of years. I don't know if that's, but
oh, you're being cheesy.
But you know what, I really thank you for taking the time and to explore, you know, what is obviously a passion with you, and you know, encourage people to come and visit again, 848 Lakeshore Road East, and down in Lakeview area.
So we're between Cawthron and Dixie.
Between Cawthron and Dixie on the south side there. And you know, have a visit and you know, peruse the wares, but talk to Gurth and the staff, and you know, enjoy what Lakeview Cheese Galore has to offer to our community, because it really is something that carries on a fine tradition, albeit one that doesn't have, we don't have a great deal of records of it, but we had a cheese cooperative here in Mississauga many years ago. Yes,
okay, I didn't know
McKay
that.
Cheese cooperative of Elm Bank, but it closed in the 1930s, so it's been a while. But the you know, we have long roots here, and obviously a lot of love of cheese, not only you know, outside of you know, individuals, but everyone likes cheese in some fashion, I would imagine, and you know, let's celebrate it here at home as well. So for Gurth, thank you so much. I wish you all the success with Lakeview Cheese Galore, and you know, pick up the books if you can, particularly the Guide to Canadian Artisanal Cheeses. I got the title wrong there, Gurth. If you can tell me again what the title is of the book.
The definitive guide to Canadian Artisanal and Fine Cheese.
There we
And
go.
also do visit my website at lakeviewcheesegalore.ca.
And we'll share the links here as well. And so thank you for that. Thank you so much for taking the time today, Girth. And thank you to our listeners for spending time with us here at Ask a Historian. Keep sending in your questions and we'll explore the stories of our city each and every week. And again, thank you to Girth Pretty for carrying on the proud tradition of cheese in Mississauga and welcoming Lakeview Cheese Galore. Please visit Lakeview Cheese Galore at 848 Lakeshore Road East in Lakeview or www.lakeviewcheesegalore.ca. And don't forget to like and subscribe and follow us here at Heritage Mississauga. So Girth, thank you so much and all the best to you.
Thank you very much, Matthew. Cheers. Cheese.